All right, what's going on? Welcome to Insight with Irv. Dealing with overwhelm. All of us deal with it at one point or another. Especially for those of us that are just let's be real, we're biting off a little bit more than what we can chew. So this episode is geared around overwhelm. My thoughts on it. Not so much on, hey, this is how you overcome it, just because I think it's one of those things that you just have to kind of deal with it and cope with it, especially as you continue to grow. So when it comes to overwhelm, look, at its core, it's really just one main thing, and that's an intense emotion that you're feeling because something is too challenging, at least for where you're at. Now, I want to break this up into maybe two different fields or two different areas of maybe what you're feeling, right? Maybe you have overwhelmed because maybe your kids are misbehaving, right? I mean, I'm not there just yet. Like my kids are young, but I've dealt with, I speak to people that their kids are teens, right? And hey, I have no control over what my teen is doing. I feel overwhelmed, aka that is an intense emotion over something that you cannot control, right? In this case, if we are maybe in business, which is what most of us that are listening to this podcast, when you're dealing with overwhelm in business, it's a little bit easier to control because it's really just a skill set issue. It's really a time management issue, and there's just a gap that you have to close, right? Maybe the overwhelm that you have is because you're one hire away from offloading maybe work that you're doing that's worth 4 people taking on. You're taking on 4 times the amount of work that you should be taking on. Maybe you haven't delegated properly. That's a skill set issue. I don't think that a lot of these skills are, binary on whether you have it or not. It's for me, it's non-binary, meaning to what extent do you have it? So that means, hey, I'm not a good delegator. No, I think the language around it is to what extent are you delegating? You're delegating. You're just delegating all the work to yourself. So maybe you're not the world's best delegator, but it's not a matter of if you have it or not. It's a skill set that you can learn. And so oftentimes what ends up happening is that every time we feel that we are overwhelmed, it's really just a change of altitude that we're facing, right? And so your lungs have to adjust. And so if maybe the pressure that you had of, hey, the first level of pressure is, hey, I want to make enough money so that we can just keep the lights on, like in my house. Like as long as I have ramen noodles and as long as the lights are on in my house, I'm good. So that could be maybe your level of overwhelm. Maybe once you get past that, business starts to do a little bit good. Maybe you took a promotion at your job. Now maybe your next phase of overwhelm is, man, I went from working maybe 40 hours. Yes, we're keeping the lights on. Yes, we're, having, a little bit more than ramen noodles. We have ramen noodles and some chicken breasts in there. Maybe now the overwhelm is, dude, now I'm working 60 hours. And so I'm at 60 hours. And now my new level of overwhelm is because I'm making more money. I find myself buying things that is maybe draining some of the money that I have, AKA I'm getting into car payments, AKA I maybe want to keep up with the Joneses. Maybe I want to buy better clothes. Maybe I want to live in a bigger house. Like the first phase, you were just happy to keep the lights on. Now you're moving into the phase of overwhelm, which again, in this case would be kind of self-inflicted. If I'm being honest with you, would be, oh, they have a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. I'm stuck in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, even though the same time, maybe last year when you first wanted it, it was the exact thing that you wanted. But then maybe you have the third realm of overwhelm, right? And that's, hey, now I am in a place where my business is going to require more hands. And so now with more hands coming in, guess what? Now you have to deal with other people's emotions. Now you have to deal with other people's expectations. Now you have to make sure that your business isn't just producing enough for you to cover your ends meet, but your business is producing enough to write a check at the end of the month to cover payroll. That your business is producing enough to keep not just your lights on, but to keep maybe your employees or your contractors' lights on. Not only that, now you have to reflect inwardly of, hey, the overwhelm that I have is coming because I now have to pour into people. I have to train them. I have to show them how it is that they should be doing their work, how it is that I would typically do it when I was maybe in this role. And sometimes that's going to be a skill set issue because you barely just ended up doing the job yourself. Now you have to copy and paste that and transfer, which is a skill set, that level of certainty and that level of diligence over to maybe the person that you want to give that off to. So look, growth is always going to make you feel uncomfortable. comfortable. If you don't want to be overwhelmed, then stay at your current baseline. That's like main thing. If you don't want to be overwhelmed, stay at your current baseline, because growth is going to demand more out of you. Growth is going to demand that you come out of that shell that you're kind of holding yourself in, because you're like, hey, I think I figured this out. And now things start to become a little bit boring. And now things start to become mundane, which is why, if you notice, we're constantly looking for new things. We're constantly looking for a new conquest. I believe that we're wired this way, if I'm honest with you guys, by God, to constantly seek these new things, these new challenges, so that, one, we can continue to grow, which in turn is going to make us feel overwhelmed, which, spoiler alert, it's going to have us obviously depend more on him, which is kind of like the other way that I would kind of deal with overwhelm would be, if you have an interdependence on God, it's not necessarily going to solve all of your problems, because a lot of people say, well, let me just go to God and it's just magically going to go away. He's not a genie, right? But I think that what he will give you is a new perspective on how to deal with that. And what he will give you is a fresh breath in terms of the lungs that you can adjust to in that altitude. So look, you're choosing to play this game. You're choosing to play this game. No one has a gun to your head telling you, hey, you have to keep this thing going or else, right? You're choosing to show up. You're choosing to put yourself in this line of work. You're choosing to hit that next level. You're choosing to say, hey, you know what? Maybe keeping the lights on doesn't challenge me anymore. It's no longer fun to me. I view a lot of this stuff like a game, right? Maybe that next level is, how can I teach other people and bring them on this journey with me so I can show them how to keep their lights on? Right now you have a staff. And so that's the way that I view overwhelm. I think that a lot of us view it from a lens of, I hate this. This sucks. But I also want you to view it going forward, because it's something that I've really been training myself. I'm not an expert in this in any way, right? These are just frameworks that I like to kind of like have for myself. Is I like to gauge it as, I think we're entering a new stratosphere. We're entering a new level. We're going into a new place. And so we just have to adjust. We haven't been here long enough, right? And so if you're on the treadmill, you have it at a 3, move it to a 5, best believe that 5 is going to feel like it's 100. You kind of get used to the 5. Okay, cool. Now we can maybe put it on a 3 incline. Okay, cool. This doesn't feel too bad. Now we can maybe keep this steady for the next, couple days at 15, 20 minutes. I'm breathing fine. Now, when you move it to maybe a 7 speed, you're like, oh crap, this kind of sucks. And so gauge the speed that you're running at, and also gauge the, I would say, the phase that you're in your business and in your life. And you'll be able to see, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed because I'm entering into a new, bigger, and better place. So if you found value in this content, consider sharing this with someone. Again, we run no ads to the show. So the way that we spread this message is by you, right? By you sharing it with a friend, with a relative, with someone that you think is going to find value in it. So if you did find value in this piece today, just go ahead and hit that share button, and feel free to leave us a 5-star review, because it does help this content reach a larger audience. Once again, I appreciate you guys checking me out. Till next time, everyone, I will see you in the next episode.